A new skyscraper to clearing storm drains. Mayor Mike Duggan is here to talk about his priorities, big and small. And can Michigan drivers get a break on the high cost of car insurance? Today is Sunday, February 26, 2017, and this is Flashpoint. Hi, welcome to Flashpoint. Well, you know the news load is pegging the meter when news of possible life on other planets barely qualifies as a headline. Yes, for me, even in a week that included the president's new immigration orders, wild town hall meetings in a lot of congressional districts, debates over transgender rights, and plans for the tallest skyscraper in Detroit, yes, for me, the head turner of the week was NASA's discovery of 7 Earth-sized planets orbiting a distant sun, several of them perhaps swirling in what we think of as the sweet spot, where liquid water might, just might, allow life to bloom. And now the real excitement begins as scientists start looking for everything from oxygen to radio signals from what seem like far-flung cosmic siblings of ours. As I always try to remember, when earthly life disappoints, it always helps to look up. This morning, we're looking up and ahead to the agenda laid out by Mayor Duggan this past week in his State of the City address. He spent most of his time talking about new hope, new money, and new jobs for Detroit's neighborhoods. But it comes as a new report was issued by 2 researchers who say, at best, the Detroit glass is half full and more likely still in decline. Well, can the mayor find lasting, expansive, inclusive change? He's here to talk about it this morning. And then a little later, Michigan has the highest auto insurance rates in the country. That was a big part of the mayor's address. Should anything be done about that, or is it just more expensive to have the best coverage around? It's all today on Flashpoint. Well, earlier this month, we learned that Mike Duggan would be running for a second term as Detroit mayor. And this past Tuesday night, we got a look at the work that he sees is still ahead. Very good to have Mayor Mike Duggan back with us again this morning on Flashpoint. Mayor, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me, Duggan.
Let me start with that report that I mentioned, because right about the time that you were talking about your assessment of where the city is right now, we had these 2 Michigan researchers in a magazine called The Conversation say that if you look at the metrics, that we're still a city in decline. Is that the way it looks to you?
Yeah, I think those researchers were looking at some data that went back a couple of years, but I'm looking at what's happening today. If you look at the sales prices of homes in the last year, they are up significantly in 2/3 of the city, but if you just drive around the city, all you have to do is the eyeball test, because the city looks cleaner, a lot less blight, a lot more business activity. And try and drive on our streets and see what the traffic's like. I think people in Detroit know what's happening.
Where are we, though, on, I guess, population? You've talked before about as we get to the point where we're not losing as much anymore. Can we foresee population growth, I guess?
So we're going to see the Census Bureau numbers in May, but the city of Detroit has lost population every year for more than 60 years. The census report last year said in 2015, we only lost 250 people a month, which is the smallest number in 60 years. In May, we'll see the numbers from 2016, and we'll see. If it isn't this year, it'll be next year. But there's no doubt that people have stopped leaving the neighborhoods, and we've got people moving into a number of different places.
You spent most of your time the other night, I'd say 80% of it, talking about neighborhoods rather than big splashy things happening downtown. And I guess is a still lingering frustration for some people who have a difficulty connecting good things happening one place with what might be happening in the neighborhoods. Are the things that happen in downtown and midtown connected to the neighborhoods?
I'd say this: I ran on a platform of every neighborhood has a future. And if you look at my last 3 State of the County speeches, 80% of those were focused on the neighborhood. So I, at least once a week, sit in a family's living room with a neighborhood group, and here's what they say: the street lights are on. The 11,000 abandoned houses are down. The blight is dramatically better. All 275 parks are open. The trash is getting picked up on time, bulk trash twice a month. And the buses are connecting the city. And so I think when you talk to people, we're making significant progress. Have we reversed 60 years of people leaving in 3 years? No, but I think we're heading the right direction.
In terms of crime, while we've seen some improvement, we still have, I believe it's 45 homicides per 100,000 people, which is still 10 times the national average. Why does this remain such a vexing issue for us, getting a handle on crime in the city?
You know, I think Chief Craig and the police department are doing a great job. And the homicide rate is down dramatically from 4 years ago. We had almost 100 more homicides a year. But we have way too much of people who have beefs with each other, solving them with gun violence. And that's the reality of where we are, and we're fighting it as a number of cities are. We're fighting it on a lot of fronts. We're fighting it with more police officers in the academy. We're fighting it with the ceasefire program, where Chief Craig and I and U.S. Attorney Barb McQuaid and a number of ministers meet with gang members face-to-face, which has had significant success in Boston. We're fighting it with technology like the green light cameras, and it is going to be a challenge, but it's one we're totally up for.
Green light has been clearly a success in a lot of different ways, but there is still some resentment on the part of some. I get it, I see it on social media, I've had people email me about it, who see it as having to pay for the service that police departments should be providing, that this is the kind of thing that we should just expect, and yet it's really expensive for somebody to get into the green light program.
It is absolutely not expensive to get in.
It's $1,000 from the start, right?
No, it's $200 or $300 a month. So Comcast has now put in financing deals. DTE has put in credit. The first 100 people have all done it voluntarily. And so what is it worth to a business owner for a couple $100 a month? And the business owners who are there will tell you overwhelmingly their nighttime business traffic has increased 20, 30%. So the people who are in the green light program have been great. Now, part of my trouble is you've had neighborhood groups and police knock on some of the doors of these businesses where there are people dealing drugs outside, loitering outside, and the business owners don't seem all that anxious to move them off. So I think we do need to go to the next step and say, if you're going to bring in customers after 10 p.m., you need to have security for those customers, whether it's on-site security, whether it's green light, or whether it's something comparable. But we're seeing now across the city, I'm being told by the police, people are driving to a gas station with a green light to make a 911 call. They are beginning to be seen as safe havens in the city. But we can't keep doing things the same way, Devin. We've got to find ways to change, and I think green light has been a success.
Blight is obviously a part of the crime picture. You had your problems, I guess, with federal oversight, where we had to shut down the demolitions for about 2 months. I think you've tried to take some of the blame for that, for pushing the land bank to move too quickly. But have you gotten this straightened out, is the question.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so there's no doubt about it. The damage that vacant houses have done to the city is immeasurable. And I can't get those houses down fast enough as far as the people in this city are concerned. And so we moved at record levels. We made some mistakes. Last summer, the Fed suspended us for 60 days, said get your processes in place. We got them in place in October. We're moving faster than ever right now with a full partnership. And I do believe we're going to take down 10,000 more houses in the next 2 years, which Devin, when I started in January of 14, the Blight Task Force report, you remember, said there were 40,000 vacant houses in the city. By the end of next year, we're going to be under 10,000.
I'm curious, is that number, we keep talking about how many vacant there were, doesn't that number grow, though, still?
It hasn't been growing the last couple of years. The opposite is happening. If you drive around the city today, you'll see people are working on their houses. They're fixing up vacant houses. We've had several thousand people. Either we sold the vacant house on the land bank auction site and moved a family in, or people renovated the houses and moved in. But the interesting thing that happens is when you knock down the 2 burned out houses, we have a lot of beautiful brick homes in this city that are vacant. People are starting to fix them up. They're starting to move back in.
But affordable housing was another focus of yours the other night. Mary Sheffield has put forth this this plan where if you're going to build an apartment complex or any kind of complex that has more than 20 units in it, you've got to dedicate 20% of it to being affordable housing. Is that something, is that kind of what you're buying into? Is that notion?
That's been our policy for the last 3 years. And so as I mentioned in the State of the City, I listed 7 affordable housing projects that we have built and have already opened, and we've got 8 more in the pipeline. So we have made it an administrative practice that if you're going to build multiple housing with government support, 20% is going to be set aside, because we're not going to have a city where one section is for wealthy people, another section is not. And what Mary Sheffield is doing, which I completely support, is say, let's make it the law of the city in an ordinance and essentially formalize it, and I completely support that. But
we kind of get to this dilemma here, whereas things get nicer, whereas things become more attractive to people to move in, they of course become more expensive, don't they?
And that's what an affordable housing policy does. So if you go over to Charlotte Street, 2 blocks west of the new hockey arena, a few months back we opened an affordable housing for homeless veterans. We have the financial support there. The Illiches will very shortly be proposing 3 new apartment buildings near the hockey arena, and every one of them will have 20% affordable units within them. So we are building a city that says, yeah, the property values are going up, but we can afford to subsidize units for those who otherwise couldn't live there.
Well, you have the word, I don't know how many times a day you hear the word gentrification or gentrifying. What's your snap reaction when you hear somebody saying that, given how many different codes there are for what it means?
Well, we're going to see a campaign that tries to play on that all the way along, but the definition of gentrification is people of lower income are pushed out by people of higher income. Yeah. And the fact is, there is so much room in the city with vacant houses, vacant apartments. We can bring people in, yeah. And that's why, as I talked about the other night in the Stevenson Industrial Building, low-income senior housing downtown, when they were threatened to be pushed out for new apartments, we stepped in with HUD, preserved those long-term, because we have enough space that we want new people to come, but they're not going to push long-time Detroiters out when they do. And I think we've been very successful at that.
I think we got an indication in Coleman Young II's announcement that he's going to be running for mayor as to where this race is headed, and that is that he's talking about basically that this city has been given over to people and taken away from the people who've been here all along.
Yeah, well, you know, got Adolph Mongo running the campaign. We know what kind of campaign it's going to be like. You know, this is the great thing. I'm going to get a report card this year, and the people of the city are going to decide. Do they want to keep going the same direction, or do they want to make a change? And that's a great thing about a democracy.
How do you feel about the soccer plan? Instead of a jail, putting a soccer stadium right there down at the...
I'm not sure that that's ultimately a soccer plan. So you have 2 different questions. One is that the right place for the jail? And I think Warren Evans is handling this exactly right. He says taxpayers are not going to pay $1 more than they would have. On the other hand, the idea of a criminal justice complex at Warren and 75, I think is enormously appealing. And that's what they're looking at. I think to expand other development in the downtown area also makes sense. And I'm confident the County Executive Evans, when he looks at the 2, will make the right decision.
Why do you not sense that it might be headed for a soccer stadium, given the application to MLS?
I think there are other... It might, but I think there are other soccer locations as well. So it's, in my mind, that is not a soccer conversation. Where should your criminal justice center be? Where should your entertainment district be? It's not really a soccer-specific conversation.
The other thing I wanted to get to was you talked about the school closure plan the other night. We heard just this past week that the governor is going to delay that so that there can be more study. Is that a good sign, or are you still worried that that's where this is headed?
So I've sent our legal team and some of our management team over to support Dr. Iris Taylor, the school board president, and Alicia Merriweather, the interim superintendent, and we've pushed back hard on the state school reform office. The way they were going about it clearly was not legal. They were going to close down 24 schools, and they did not in a single case have a nearby school that was equal or better. And so we were prepared to take the legal option, but we said to the state, why don't we work on this together? We're not saying the schools are succeeding. We're saying you just can't close down an entire building in a neighborhood, and I really support what the Detroit Public Schools are doing.
Last question I wanted to get to. You talked also about jobs, and clearly if we could put Detroiters to work, it would solve many, many issues. You've talked about connecting them to jobs. Right now, though, we have an economy where we have college graduates who are underemployed and unemployed. Is there enough work there for people who may not have a high school degree yet? And why are you confident that you can?
So what we've done with Detroit at Work is we sat down with employers. DMC, Henry Ford, St. John said we will hire 240 people this year out of this program. We've sat down with folks who said we're going to hire people to drive our trucks out of this program. We've got more than 700 jobs already lined up. The training is there for the jobs that are being hired for. And when I talk to young people in town saying, I hear about this school, I hear about this program, I don't really know what to do. Yeah. We said, what if we have one program, Detroit at Work, that no matter what kind of job skill you want, you can go and you'll be trained for a job that really exists. And we had 250 people call up to come in and register the first day. So it's a very positive start.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. It's always good to have you on the program. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Devin.
When we come back, we're going to dig further into your problems over insurance and car insurance, not only in Detroit, but in the state of Michigan. This is Flashpoint on Local 4. All right, well, now let's dig a little deeper into the auto insurance problem in Michigan. We have the highest cost of car insurance in the country, and in Detroit, really, it's even worse, to the point that the car insurance can greatly outpace your actual car payment. So what to do about that? Joining me this morning to talk about it now, Butch Hollowell, the Corporation Counsel for the City of Detroit, back with us. Also back with us, State Representative Sherry K. Danyogo, who represents Detroit in Lansing. Representative, let me start with you, because I think a lot of people would just assume that our legislators in Detroit would be fighting for the same thing that the mayor has been fighting for, whether it be de-insurance or something to bring these rates down, but you don't like that idea. You don't want to get rid of it.
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for having me on. But I think that's an unfair narrative that's being pushed. It's what was stated by the mayor at the State of the City, and so it's really unfair.
Not accurate?
No, it's not accurate. We want lower insurance. I mean, I've lived it, I've paid it, my family members have as well, my colleagues as well. So we want lower insurance, but what we do not want to do is sacrifice having the health care coverage that's necessary from the form of insurance that we have now in the state of Michigan. And so having catastrophic claims and the coverage that provides that safety net for people that might get in an accident, you know, because an accident is an accident. It's not something you plan for, but we want to make sure that we have the necessary coverage in place to ensure all families, all children are protected in the event of an accident. And so we're calling for measures in place to stop charging us based on credit scores, stop charging us based on zip codes. We're calling for a greater fraud authority to be put in place. We're calling for all stakeholders to be at the table. And right now, the only one who hasn't really made any concessions is the insurance industry.
Bush, we have a redlining problem that's existed forever. But the mayor the other night in his address said that he's come to realize that going to Lansing, talking about Detroit's problems, wasn't really getting him anywhere because the entire state is overcharged.
That's true. Insure.com for the last 3 years has held Michigan as the #1 most expensive state in the United States. Of course, Detroit has the highest rates in the nation at the average of $3,400 versus $1,700 in the suburbs. And I think what Representative Danyogo and I would agree on is that we want to reach the same conclusion, and hopefully we can come together on the means. Here's the key thing. Half of your auto insurance premium is made up of the health care portion of it. That's called PIP, personal injury protection.
Right.
But what happens is the healthcare industry charges 5 times more for auto insurance related care than they do for non-auto insurance care. So let me just give you a statistic. For a CAT scan for Medicaid or Blue Cross, they reimburse the hospitals for $262.
If it's through your health care.
If it's through your health care. If it's through no fault, it's $1,862. If you want an MRI, that's $481 compared to $3,200 under no fault. And so we're saying is, let's look at where the problem is. The problem is in healthcare and these reimbursements and a lot of predatory lawyers who have decided that they are going to pick on Detroit. They file 8 times as many lawsuits in the city of Detroit than they do outside.
Representative, why are you shaking your head no? That seems to be fairly...
I find this kind of disingenuous, and let me tell you why. Because Butch has been on the other side of this issue, working with those who have fought to protect auto no fault for years, as was the mayor, the head of DMC. And so how do we come to this epiphany, if you will, on now realizing that the hospitals charge too much? Did they not charge too much when the mayor was there? So, you know, and that has not been completely documented. So what we cannot do is use fear-driven statistics to have this conversation as we look to improve the cost of insurance for all of Michigan drivers. What we have to do is call the insurance industry to the table to make some concessions. Hospitals have agreed, in all fairness, to roll back their rates at 20 to 30%. what have the insurance industry put on the line? It's nothing other than continue to pad the pockets of those who want to dismantle the system of form of insurance that we have. And so it's just unfair. Your message years ago are totally contrast to what you're saying today. And so I think that's unfair, and it's putting more division in this conversation as opposed to bringing all stakeholders to the table.
So fair enough. I've been working on this issue probably longer than anybody, since 1988, when the NAACP first asked me to do the original no-fault study for the state of Michigan and the city of Detroit. No fault no longer works in Detroit. Let's just be brutally honest. It doesn't work in Detroit. It doesn't work in the state of Michigan. That's why people are getting out of it by droves. Now there's only 12 states that are left. There were many in the 1970s, but Colorado is the latest. They got out of it because it costs too much. What we're saying is give people a choice. Allow consumers to have a choice like they do under Obamacare, where the president didn't make you buy the most expensive coverage, which you have to do in Michigan under no fault. Yeah. He said there are levels, the gold coverage, silver coverage, bronze coverage. President Obama was right. That's what we're advocating for. If you want to keep your insurance, you can certainly do that, but give consumers a choice.
Representative, in a city where transportation is such an issue, you have a lot of people who, I've talked to them, they would have a car. It's not the car they can't afford, it's the insurance. So when we talk about trying to shave a few dollars off a premium, I'm not sure that that's what most Michiganders want to see. I think they want to see a revolution in there rather than a little bit of evolution. You're
absolutely right. And so I pay over $5,000 a year. So
that's insane.
It is absolutely insane. But what's not fair is we're not being honest. The cost for that catastrophic coverage through the MCCA is only $180 a year. So even out of a $5,000 plus policy, you take off $180. Yes, that's a measure of savings, but it's not significant enough.
Not significant.
So when I hear the NAACP talking about insurance and reducing the rates as a civil rights issue, yes, it is a civil rights issue, but in the sense of stop redlining, stop charging insurance rates based on zip codes, based on credit scores, based on your educational attainment
rates. But again, that's
rates.
the Detroit snapshot of it rather than the Michigan snapshot. We're talking about Michigan being the most expensive, not just Detroit.
I understand that, and Michigan is the most expensive, but when it comes to Detroit, in urban areas specific, and so that's what de-insurance was designed to address. And I know we're looking to scaling this to the state now, but you have members on both sides of the aisle that's saying, hey, stop this. Let's have a conversation. Let's have a true fraud authority, not stacked by the governor and insurance agencies.
I'll give you one more chance after a quick break. This is Flashpoint on Local 4. Butch, go. I promised you a couple of seconds.
No fault doesn't work for Detroiters or Michiganians. 60% of Detroiters now do not have car insurance. That means 40% of the 320,000 vehicles in the city are driving around without insurance. We have to solve this problem. It's a voting issue. It's an economic development issue. We're going to get it done.
Vexing. Thank you both for being here. Meet the Press is next. See you next time on Flashpoint.